It wouldn't be another day on the campaign trail if we didn't have a doozy from Donald Trump. And this new one almost is making folks forget about the Second Amendment comment. We're going to tell you what he had to say and the reaction it's getting. Then, with so many people fed up with both candidates, will that set the table for viable third-party runs in the future? Plus, Bridgegate back in the news as one of Governor Christie's aides says he was lying about the lane closures at the GW Bridge. How damning is this? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hillary Clinton, she delivered an economic speech today, overshadowed, though, by the release of more emails and Trump's latest outrageous comments. Here's part of what the former secretary had to say.
Now, we have a lot of urgent and important work to do, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. Because all the people that I have met throughout this campaign really prove how wrong this negative, pessimistic view is. America's best days are still ahead of us if we make up our minds to actually go out and make that happen.
And here's more from the campaign trail, which of course includes Hillary and Donald slamming one another. Caught up in a war of words, the candidates are firing pointed jabs.
Words matter, my friends.
Clinton questioning Trump's temperament.
Yesterday, we witnessed the latest in a long line of casual comments from Donald Trump that cross the line.
And accusing the GOP nominee of inciting violence with his controversial remarks.
Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know.
Trump insists he was referring to the unity of Second Amendment supporters. He's trying to move past the controversy, turning his attention to Clinton's latest email release.
It revealed the lies, the deception, the dishonesty.
Questioning her ethics, that after the State Department released a new batch of emails from her time as Secretary of State. Trump accusing Clinton of exchanging donations to the Clinton Foundation for favors from the State Department.
You're not allowed to do it. It's illegal. It's illegal.
The Clinton campaign says Hillary Clinton never took action as Secretary of State because of donations to the foundation. Trump also turning up the heat on the current occupant of the Oval Office.
ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS.
He was given not one, not two, not three, 4 different chances to step it back, and each time he doubles, triples, quadruples down on it. So those kind of comments and so many more before them have made many a Republican nervous. Now we learn today there will soon be a letter going public with about 75 Republicans banding together to petition the Republican National Committee to cut funding for the Trump campaign, not to write one more check for one more dollar. Instead, they want to divert those monies to help congressional Republican candidates instead. And by the way, our friend Chris Shays, who we spoke to last night, was one of the signatories of that. Plus, the Justice Department will not reportedly investigate the Clinton Foundation, even though some within the FBI had asked it to do just that. So a lot to process here, and we've got a good panel to break it all down for us. Let's welcome former Democratic New Jersey Congressman Steve Rothman, Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, Scott Vanderhoff, former 5-term Republican Rockland County executive and co-chairman of the Palisades Institute of Dominican College, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. All right, before we get to the easy stuff, I guess, is the Trump, it's more on the Hillary front. And I ask you, apparently what we're learning today is, well, we learned a little bit yesterday with the leaks. Doug Band, what kind of a numbskull is this? Puts in an email, hey, can you do me a solid? Uma, writing directly to Uma Abedin, the right-hand person for Hillary Clinton, and put this person in touch with this person. Let's make a connection here. Also, there was emails where people were looking for jobs as well. Whether that happens or not, given the specter, given the promises that the Clintons made here when she became Secretary of State and that the Clinton Foundation would have no interference with the State Department and more leaks possibly to come, how worried should the Clintons be that this story is not going away between now and Election Day and there could be an October surprise?
Well, we'll have to find out if Secretary Clinton did anything wrong.
Well, the optics are, even if she personally didn't, they should have known a lot better.
Well, you know, just because someone in your circle or in an outer ring of a circle around you asks somebody not you, but somebody in your circle to do something, and you don't act on it,
Time out.
or
I'm with
nothing
you.
comes
I'm
of
with
it.
you.
No,
But the general public doesn't know who Doug Band is, and they don't know who Uma Abedin is, but we do. These are not some low-level flacks.
But Richard, I used to be a judge, so forgive me if I'm committed to the truth and not convicting somebody till there's evidence
Are you waving a
to do
gavel
that.
at me? Yeah, go ahead.
So, in essence, these are allegations that maybe something went wrong. The Clinton folks said, yeah, some people may have asked us to do things, especially for people who donated to the Clinton Foundation, but we never did it. Let's find out, though, if that statement is true.
Goes a little bit farther than that, though, because, first of all, Uma Abedin didn't say, who's this? It was Doug Band, who, by the way, has been hanging out with Bill Clinton nonstop for the last 8 years, and more than that, she agreed to help facilitate the meetings.
No, it's just plain wrong.
And it's dumb.
Yeah, whether it crosses into criminality is another issue. It's wrong. When she signed up to be Secretary of State, she said there'd be a wall, an absolute wall between anything the foundation did and she did. You can't have a wall and have people emailing on the behalf of the foundation. It's completely wrong. And what makes it worse, I'm afraid, is this is one of those emails she didn't produce. It's one of those ones she kept hidden.
100%.
Okay? And every time this happens, it goes to this question of her honesty.
But Mr. County Executive, you had thousands of people working for you as county executive. If somebody communicated to someone on your staff and asked for something and it never got to you or it was never acted upon, how does that reflect negatively on you?
My staff would have known immediately you do not deal with personnel issues or anything outside of the government. And if you do, you're using the legal stuff, you're using the internet illegally, improperly. You cannot use the internet for those kinds of things.
And it's his chief of staff who did it.
Would you have resigned because of that?
No, but is it right? Your question, I'm telling you, it's wrong. It's not a question of resigning.
You wouldn't have resigned. You might have fired your chief of staff.
First of all, I would have made it, if someone wanted to realize what had happened, I would have made it public, number one. Number two, there would have been repercussions for the staff member, or I would have brought him in or something. You don't hide it. You don't hide it. It's wrong. It's wrong under any circumstance.
But Dom, what I don't get is, they've been at this long enough.
You get it. You understand.
No. Here's what I don't. Here's what I don't
understand.
Favors happen all the time. There's a way to do favors.
Right. It happens whether you're a Democrat or a Republican.
Absolutely. But to pretend, first of all, to have Uma Abedin, who is, everybody knows.
First red flag.
Exactly.
Alarm.
And then Doug Band, who's like this with Bill Clinton.
Second alarm.
And then, as he says, it's one of the 30,000 emails they never produced.
Third alarm.
It's really amateur hour.
Everybody
does favors. I mean, and you're not supposed to. It sounds bad. Please. People help people find jobs. People help people have meetings. The point is, it happened, and they promised beforehand it wouldn't.
Amateur hour, it plays to the narrative of you cannot trust the Clintons. I'm not saying that I agree with that, but there is a perception out there in America, in particular, that's keeping Trump's campaign alive, if you will, because they believe that almost anything that comes out of Hillary or Bill Clinton's mouth happens to be fabricated. And when these types of situations happen, it does not help. It's sloppy, it's bad, and politics, perception becomes reality. And you're right, we're not dealing with the possibility right now of criminality, but it might rise to that level.
See, I don't think it is. The Justice Department's not going to investigate it. They've said they wouldn't.
I wonder why not.
But Andrew, there's more leaks to come.
You said favors happen. So is your concern not what happened, but how it was done?
Yes. And I am even concerned.
What's the difference?
Well, first of all, only a naive person would think that we've seen the last of this. They have been leaking this thing. You got your old colleague fired here at running the DNC, okay, at Debbie Wasserman Schultz. There are other Democrats that there's going to be leaks too. They made a promise that they were not going to in any way conflate the foundation with the State Department, and never shall the two cross. I do find it problematic, not criminal, I find it problematic that this kind of culture was permitted after they made promises not to, okay? And I have been an apologist for the Clintons more than most. However, the second part is, I think there's more to come. And I think they created an environment where this kind of BS could happen, and this distracts from the campaign. It's not as serious as some of the other stuff that I think we're going to talk about that Trump may have done, but nonetheless, to me, it creates and permits this false comparative narrative. And they have only themselves to blame.
But again, it sounds like you're more concerned not with what happened, but with how it was done, and the fact that there's a paper trail.
And that they promised they wouldn't do it.
Well, all right, and then to my second point is, let's eliminate the Clinton Foundation for now. Let's
but how can you?
allow me, if you will. Let's say that there wasn't a foundation, that it was just a friend of Bill Clinton's who reached out to Bill Clinton's chief of staff and said, hey, can you set me up with something with the State Department? Would that have been problematic?
You do it by a phone. You do it by your personal phone. You don't use an email in government to deal with a foundation and not-for-profit.
And there is a big difference, Andrew. It's just like when people do fundraising. You know they have to leave a building to go to another building to make the phone call. Maybe it's form, but it's also substance. There should be a wall. And if something comes with a heading of Clinton Foundation and they're making a request in the State Department, of course they're going to listen to it more. And you know what? I don't just think it's the tinfoil hats who are making a big deal out of this. I got a problem with this too. Now here's my other problem though. Compare this to what you're hearing Donald Trump say. And if ever I've ever seen somebody who can step on their own news cycle, it's been Trump. I mean, we hear the Second Amendment comments, but now Scott, how many times is he going to say that Obama founded ISIS? Who does he think that he's going to convince that's not already voting for him that this is smart, rather than turning off people who say, this guy's crazy?
Yeah, and the unfortunate part about it is the message he's trying to convey is that ISIS grew under this administration.
It's a huge leap from founding it.
Well, in addition to which, it also grew under Bush because, essentially, I mean, if you're going to follow the facts. But he's a stream of consciousness guy who, and one of the reasons those people signed on saying he's dangerous, and I think in foreign affairs, is he has no policy, he has no fundamental beliefs. He is dangerous in the sense that he doesn't believe what he says, and he'll say something like that, which I think was taken too strongly. The whole question of the Second Amendment issue, and now people are jumping on everything he does, but he cannot help himself. His ego is so tied to everything he does. His narcissism just doesn't allow him to think.
I don't think either one of these was stream of consciousness. I think they were both well planned, and he used the exact terminology that he wanted to use. Is he factually incorrect? Yes, he is 100%. But he's selling the message that Clinton equals ISIS and Obama equals ISIS.
I get it, but you know what? Who in the middle? He's not moving anyone in the middle. And there's been 20 polls that have confirmed that he's not changing any minds.
I wouldn't be so sure that he's not moving people in the middle.
I haven't seen a number that says
Allow me to add my support to what you said and what Scott said. He's doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down on this Clinton and Obama are the founders of ISIS, which is actually a joke. It's not true. And Scott said the same thing. It is not factually true. Actually, the founder of ISIS was in a prison in Iraq during George W. Bush's presidency. George W. Bush released that prisoner, who then escaped to Syria, founded ISIS, and came back to foment all of this ISIS activity. But the stream of consciousness aspect of Donald Trump is not just a cute little thing, and I don't think you're saying that. It is a very dangerous thing when you're dealing with international relations. When he said if a NATO country in Europe was attacked by Russia, he wouldn't defend the NATO country
protection money
and the NATO treaty members. That's a message. That's a careless or deliberate message to Putin. We're going to turn our eyes away. If you do that, it not only damages our relationships with our allies, the NATO members, who we have a treaty with, if they're going to be invaded, but it also sends a terribly weak message to our enemies like Russia.
And to me, to be clear, what I think at the beginning, and I have a legitimate problem with what the Clintons did, politically dumb. What I think he's doing is dangerous. And Dominic, there's just one other story I heard, and you know Trump better than the folks at this table do. Apparently, there were 4 or 5 people closest to him, whether it be Ivanka, to Giuliani, and other people in between, that basically are serving as minders with him because they're afraid of what he's going to tweet. And I've heard this numerous people that are somewhat close to say, this is where we've gotten in trouble. We're around him. Just imagine if he's elected. You can't have minders around him the whole time. We joke around about this, but I sat and thought about this. Imagine somebody trailing somebody all the time. What are you tweeting? What are you about to do? You're the commander-in-chief. You got the red buttons. You've got the security briefs, not the redacted ones, the real ones, and everything else. You can have a microphone wherever you want. You don't have to call into a TV show. It's a scary proposition.
It is, especially for the President of the United States, and that's why the polling reflects that he's not doing so well. But what's even more scarier to me is that this man has a possibility of winning.
Yep.
What does that say about this country? We can talk about Donald Trump in a negative way for the next several months. It's not going to mean anything. His base is going to turn out in record numbers, and he might be elected President of the United States. And that is the scariest thought that I can personally think of.
Well, that's a perfect segue to what we're going to talk about next, and that is politicians stretching the truth. That's not anything new here. Let's get off the high horses. We've had that since the dawn of time. But the question is, are these two taking it to a different level, especially the guy in the suit or the tie made in China? We'll talk about that straight ahead.